I was changing a couple things, like allow panelists to start video, allow participants to unmute themselves. I don't know if that's just the panelists or if that's, I turn that off for now. So why is that? Why aren't they waiting in the?
I don't know.
Where is that? They should. Who is Benita?
She's one of the residents.
Okay, there should be a waiting room right now. There should be a waiting room. Why can't I have a waiting room?
I don't know.
Okay, that's a problem. That's a huge problem. Can you ask Paula that, Prentice?
I'm working on that.
Mm.
I'm just putting them on the hold right now, all of them. Can you hear me?
I've never seen where you can't put them in waiting room.
I have been doing that.
Hmm?
I've been able to do it. I put everybody else in a holding pattern.
I know, but it should be upon entry, and then you let everybody else in at admit all. I don't see where you can do that. Why isn't that a
I text Paul,
automatic?
she hasn't responded yet. I don't know. She's working on it for me.
Okay, well, you'll just put everybody in there. I'm going to use the restroom, and then I'll be ready to start.
Okay.
Okay, I'll be back. But just, yeah, put everybody on hold.
Okay.
So why does it say there's 0 attendees? Everybody's a panelist?
Only 58 people are panelists.
Oh, because I haven't started the webinar. Let me
Is-
start it.
Yeah.
You ready?
Yeah.
Okay. So we gotta take everybody off. So I'll just put admit all.
You mean everybody panelists? You're letting the panelists in? Okay, go ahead.
Yeah.
Francine's trying to call me. Okay, this is.
It's all right. You can answer. Should I think I can just admit all. Or do the attendees as well.
Mid all for the panelists if you want to do that. Yeah.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. We'll get started in 1 second. I know some folks are still joining. So, good evening. We'll get started in 1 second, but to the extent that you can turn your video on, please do. You know, obviously, if you're not dressed or doing something you want everybody to see. But it's nice. One thing about these Zoom meetings is allows a lot of people to show up. but there's downsides. We don't get to see each other and interact. So it's nice if you can show your video, do show your video. If not, totally understand. It's not required at all. Um, we will get started in just about 30 seconds. See everyone that I can see. All right. So let me get started. You'll be able to join in, but let me get started and just kind of give you an overview. My name is Sophia King, Alderman of the 4th Ward, joined here this evening by my Chief of Staff, Prentice Butler. Tonight, we want to talk about Ellis, our proposal, have a full discussion. And before we do that, we would like to introduce you to the North Kenwood Advisory Council, because in the future, we want to make sure that items like this go through the Advisory Council. The Advisory Council, we've divided the ward up into 6 advisory councils areas. North Kenwood is one of those areas. Hyde Park, Kenwood, Grand Boulevard, Douglas, and South Loop. And so each of those areas has a president, a vice president, and subcommittee chairs. There's about 6 subcommittee chairs. And those chairs are in areas that we've found that people want to be involved. So on a night like tonight, it would be infrastructure, safety is another one, education, development, jobs and economic development, and I'm missing one, Prentice Health. Arts and Parks is another. And so we want everybody to sign up. Most people here tonight are from the North Kenwood area, although we have folks from outside of the area who are also participating. And we would love for you guys to sign up for the North Kenwood Advisory Council. This evening, we've got Doug McKeever, who is the president. I think he's here this evening. Doug, why don't you say hello? I don't know if you can.
You hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Good evening, Alderwoman King, Prentice, hello. Just a quick update on what our advisory council, where we were and where we are now. I was a former member of the CCC, the Conservation Community Council, and that was about a 20-year run on my participation, but that really evolved around when we were dealing predominantly with not economic, but development, which is residential or commercial development. And on properties that were owned by the city, we would weigh in, we would listen to the proposals by the developers, and actually sometimes come to a vote as whether we would support or not support all of the proposal or certain aspects of the proposal. Now that, the development in the ward has really changed gears, the alderman thought it was a good idea to transform what we did into an advisory council. And she's also asked 4 or 5 other locations in the ward to put together advisory councils. So what we're really trying to do is get ourselves kind of organized to the extent that when we do start to entertain the community and engage you, we're prepared to actually advocate for you and be ready to formulate something for the alderman's office to consider on your behalf. Just like tonight, probably in the future, we would be involved. We might be a first contact, or if you contacted the alderman's office, they would then ask us to reach out to you guys individually as residents and listen to your concerns and try to coalesce that into a structured proposal to the board. Doesn't preclude any of you from talking with the alderman or Prentice, but we're just another mechanism that has a lot of history in North Kenwood, Oakland, that we're trying to kind of change gears and be available to the community on a multitude of levels. So my co-chair, Myra Winding, is on the call tonight, and we do have several other chair people that have signed up to take responsibility for I'm going to just read them off again for you all, the Block Club, Arts and Parks, Development, which is building residential or commercial, Economic Development, which is new business, Infrastructure, which is what we'll address tonight, Education, which is if you have children or had children, you know what that is, and Public Safety. That involves everybody's concerns with regard to safety and hot spots in the ward. But we are going to get to a point where we can actually be a very well-functioning group on your behalf, and also be a mechanism into the alderman's office, so you don't always feel like you're alone. So with that, I'll turn it back to Alderwoman King, and if you have any questions in the future, we'll get some contact information out to you. Thanks, Alderwoman.
No, thank you. Thank you for your leadership. Again, Doug McKeever is the chair of the North Kenwood Advisory Council. Myra, I see you there. I don't know if you want to say a few words. Myra is the co-chair. And we also have the chair, I believe, of the subcommittee, Francine Washington, although I don't see her. And then I'll explain why some people can see and some people can't. But Myra, if you want to say a few words while I look for Francine.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Thank you, Alderman King. Hello, everyone. Thanks for being with us tonight. I am the co-chair. I'm excited to be here with you guys tonight. I'm looking forward to hearing from you all and working together in the near future. Together we can accomplish so many things. So I'm really excited about this opportunity that Alderman King has provided for all of us, so that we can hear from you, that we can collaborate together and do what we need to do to continue making sure that our communities are growing and thriving. And as Doug said, we're here. If folks reach out to us, I'll put contact information in the chat so that you have access to it. Thank you.
Right. And I actually see Ms. Francine Washington, who is the chair of this subcommittee, the infrastructure subcommittee. Francine, if you just want to say hello. I think.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. I can hear you. So,
Hello, everyone. Looking forward to discussions to come tonight.
great. So, so tonight, just to give you an overview, we're going to put up a kind of a slideshow presentation, but we have allowed about 50 panelists because we had about almost 200 people interested in tonight, and we didn't want to have no interaction. So a lot of you have been involved in Zoom where you're just kind of an attendee and you don't really get to interact. So we figured 50 was a good number. The way we did it, very objectively, well, not somewhat subjectively, but somewhat objectively, let's just say, we'll tell you how we did it. Tonight's meeting, as most of you know, is about our proposal to change the 3900 block of Ellis one way and a couple other proposals that we have. And so what we decided to do was we first took the 3900 block and we sent all of those panelist invites. And then we also went down to the 4,000 block of Ellis and then the 4,100 block of Ellis. Then we went over to Berkeley and Lake Park. And that's how we did it, because we felt, and what we like to do is obviously involve the immediate community. This has interests outside the community as well, like I said, but the panelists that we've allowed and who will be able to talk when we get to that portion by hand, you can raise your hand. We'll try and get to as many people as we can so that we can have a good dialogue. rather than just me talking and picking questions in the chat. I wanted it to be, you know, a good discussion back and forth. You know, I saw literature kind of out there, was handed some myself. You know, this is not anything nefarious we're trying to do without the community. Folks who know me know I probably have way too many meetings, but I think in the end we get better outcomes for our community. So that's our attempt tonight, to get as much input as we can from as many people as we can in an effective way, but not everybody is a panelist. So not everybody has video and will be able to talk. Right now, I think we have about 130 people joining us. And like I said, we've got about 43 panelists now, but we allowed for a little over 50 panelists just so we can have some interaction. So we're gonna do kind of a quick overview, just to level set so people understand what we're talking about. I know there's some misinformation about our proposal, and then we will get to save the majority of time for discussion. And really what we want to do is, you know, have people raise hands. We'll also try and take some questions that were submitted ahead of time, as well as some questions from the attendees who aren't necessarily panelists. So, you know, Myra, I don't know if you're staying the whole time, but if a couple folks can help me with kind of who's raising their hands. I can't see everybody, but if you can, that would be helpful. If you need to leave, just let me know. And then, you know, I'll ask somebody else to do that. All right, so we will get like a 5 to 10 minute kind of presentation. Hopefully it won't take long, and then have the remaining time so we can discuss this proposal. Okay. Thanks, Prentice. All right. So this is just kind of an overview of the agenda. We already did some introductions. Prentice, can you go back one slide? Thank you. So just an overview of kind of how we got to this point, the proposal, the process that we kind of went through, discussion, and then a path forward. And the discussion will be the main, the majority of the meeting. So next slide. As we opened up with, we've divided the ward into 6 community areas because we know folks just really make decisions about where they live. We introduced to you the president of the North Kenwood Oakland Advisory Council, as well as the co-chair or the 2 chairs, and the chair of the subcommittee, which is infrastructure, which this would fall into. So what we want to do is have these advisory councils meet quarterly. I'll show up to those meetings quarterly. They're really meant to empower you, the community. You guys can have your subcommittee meetings with or without me. And then I will show up to the quarterly meetings to hear concerns that you have, proposals that you have about infrastructure in terms of development. That was the piece that the NKLCC used to do, and they just handle development. All development will go through this advisory council. So we've got a number of developments in the queue that we want to share with you. The advisory council has really just been getting itself together so that it could be more effective and efficient to have all of you join. This is just kind of the area. You can go on our website to see the different areas, but these are kind of the ward. We have from the Central Business District to Hyde Park. And so we've just kind of divided the ward into community areas where people live and breathe. So this is the current flow of traffic from coming off of Oakwood Boulevard. Most people who come off of Oakwood Boulevard and live in the area turn quickly onto Ellis Avenue And people who don't live in the area turn quickly onto Ellis Avenue because Ellis goes all the way through to 51st Street. They use Ellis like what we call, and what I've learned since I've become alderman, is an arterial street, which is a through street. Cottage, for instance, is a through street. Drexel Boulevard is actually a through street. Some of the bigger, Pershing is a through street. But Ellis and Lake Park are actually residential streets. They're not meant for people to travel through, especially not quickly. And so very early on, when I became alderman, people, came to me about safety concerns around Ellis, people speeding down, and especially since there's a park, Holly Park, on the in the 4,000 block of Ellis. And so they asked us, well, what can we do? And so we came up with a proposal of turning Ellis at 39th Street in the 3900 block one way to discourage people from coming down Ellis and to use Cottage, especially if they didn't live in the area. So this is our proposed kind of traffic flow, where people would come off of Oakwood Boulevard. They would, continue on to Cottage, whether you live in the neighborhood or not. If you live in the neighborhood, you can turn on 40th and get back on Ellis or go down Drexel or what have you. If you don't, you continue to use Cottage as a thoroughfare. So that's kind of our proposal. We would turn just the 3900 block of Ellis one way, going north, in order to mitigate all the traffic that comes through. And then we would also are proposing to put a table. What is it called?
Speed table.
A speed table. Thank you, Prentice. At Holly Park, and that would look. I think you have that on this slide. Your next slide, Prentice. Yeah, so, well, you can go back to Holly Park so people, I think most people know where it is. Can you go back one slide? Yeah, so that's Holly Park. We had improvements at the park, as you guys know. A number of folks use it all the time, but we also put the gate up on our own because we realized that it was an issue. And so again, our proposal is to turn 39th at Ellis one way, the 3900 block, and then to put the speed table, if you can show that again, Prentice, at Holly Park for additional mitigation, as well as signage right there. And so right at the park, we would pinch the sidewalks so that young kids who can't see around the cars can have more safety, and bring kind of that together, and then put a speed table right there in order to mitigate kind of that dangerous area right there. Initially in the process, we socialized this with the 3900 block of Ellis. And then I think there was a resident who was proposing to do speed bumps on the street, and we told them about our proposal to change 39th Street one way. And so we halted and said, because she and one other person were like, well, why didn't you tell our block about it? And so she had a fair point. And this was before COVID. I don't know the exact timetable, but we halted and said, okay, let's do that. But before that, we had already put an ordinance in to change the street. It takes some time to do that. And we knew that we didn't have to pull the trigger. And so we did introduce an ordinance to do that. We also, have heard that, we did that against CDOT's wishes. And, just wanted to kind of explain how ordinances are introduced and how a good number of proposals often go against CDOT's wishes. One big one, for instance, is the renaming of Ida B. Wells. CDOT was against that, just so you know. Putting stop signs down 47th Street, down 51st Street. Those are all things that CDOT were against. Putting stop lights in certain places. There's certain regulations that they have to take into consideration. And so turning Ellis one way at 39th Street was something that they did not recommend. And so, but we wanted to move forward like a number of times that we've done, where we felt it was in the interest of the safety of a street to do so. Another noteworthy one is putting a stop sign in front of Murray School. They did not want us to do that. And a number of things go into consideration there. Just to give you a brief synopsis, depending on traffic, sometimes it sends a mixed message. There are a lot of mixed messages sent because pedestrians have the right of way, and so cars are supposed to stop. It's our thought that having a stop sign there helps send a better message and not. So in any case, nothing nefarious that we were trying to do, but we did move forward without their recommendation. And if you go on to the ordinances that are introduced, you'll see that there are hundreds that are done without their recommendation. So just to kind of give you background there. So again, our proposal is to turn Ellis one way only at 39th, not all the way, just to mitigate traffic and to push traffic that's supposed to use Cottage to get through the neighborhood and not to go through a residential neighborhood. Are also to put a speed table here at the park. And in doing so, the bus would have to be rerouted slightly. And so we wanted to show you currently how the bus was routed and then how it would be rerouted. So Prentice, if you can share that.
Sorry about the lag. I'm just answering questions in the Q&A as well. So that's
Okay.
what's
I
happening.
know we're multitasking. We are a small office, but try and do a lot of everything. So this is the current path for the 39th Street bus. It currently goes down Ellis, and of course we're proposing to turn it one way, so it would be rerouted. And I think, Prentice, you have a slide of the rerouting. Yeah. So then the rerouting would take it down Cottage. It would make that left going east at 40th and then continue on its original path to Lake Park and then back around Pershing. So it won't interrupt people who are taking the bus, and we would add a couple stops, additional stops to the bus route.
Alderman, while you're on that subject, somebody asked again the question about the parking enforcement about Mandalay Park. Do you want to speak about that quickly?
You mean whether, because people park illegally there.
That's correct.
Yeah, which would, get in the way of traffic kind of coming there. We certainly would enforce that more to help to stop that. But yes, that would be something that we would pay attention to so that people would kind of understand, the new traffic flow here. So that is a proposal kind of in a nutshell. And now, like I said, we wanted to leave most of the time for kind of questions and answers and so to speak. So if you can raise your hand, Myra, if you can help me out with who is asking questions, and we'll start with our subcommittee chair because I see Francine has her hand up. So we will start off with you, Francine, and then if we can, Myra, you just let me know who is next in line, and then we'll
Okay.
try and go from there. I also have some questions that are written down, but I'll try and go with questions live first. Ms. Washington.
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am, I can.
Well, this is Francine, and you know I like to talk, and I'm over the subcommittee, and 39th to Ellis happen to be in my boundaries.
Yes.
And I meant to call Prentice, but my husband got COVID, so I've been busy the last month. He's in the hospital. But me, my own personal opinion, I looked at that street. I drive down that street 3 and 4 times a day. I think and I always believe myself living in a community, not a neighborhood, but a community where people get along and they respect each other. But
Yes.
I think it's very selfish to turn Ellis into a one-way going north. Lake Park going north. If I wanted to get to Lake Park place, I have to go down Drexel Cottage Grove to get to 39th, we're at the 40th in Lake Park. I go down Ellis, I turn one corner, I'm at home. If I want to go to Lake Park, I go down to 41st. I turn, I'm right there at home. Or I could drive to 41st, go around the buildings, 41, 17, and be right there at one stop, or be at Lakeshore Drive. It's selfish. But what the people don't realize on that block, it's not that much traffic. They repaired the buildings on, you don't know how many buildings are vacant before you got to be Alderman. Brendan may know there's a lot of buildings vacant. They repaired those buildings, people moved in. They built more on 41st Street, on 40, 42nd. Folks can drive straight down Ellis and be at their house. It's not 39th Street getting all the traffic. It's people that are right at 40th, 41st, and 42nd. They just built up new houses. Well, how do people gonna get home? You're gonna inconvenience them. And then if some of them do go down 40, 41st, they'll be on the other side of the street from where they live at.
Right.
So you can inconvenience a whole community for a block. They mean everybody can inconvenience somebody for their block. I think it's very selfish. And you should study the people that live on, see what the people's driving to. I see every day what the people's driving to. They just moved into the community. They built new houses and they rehabbed old houses. And the people on 39th Street don't see that. Or they just want to be selfish, their block just belong to them. They want the park just to belong to them. We all have to suffer.
So
There's no me.
So I appreciate that perspective. Like I said, Francine is the chair of this subcommittee. We've heard that perspective, and yes, it will inconvenience people.
You have back to back.
It will inconvenience people a little bit, but be mindful. You will be in a car, and safety is the big issue. But it's not just that block. It's not just the 3900 block. We're proposing just to turn the 3900 block one way to mitigate the safety issues that come all the way down the block. So it's not just that block. It is the entire block, and ultimately the safety of the kids, that are at the park. But that definitely an inconvenience is there. So I'm not trying to downplay that. That's the main thing that comes up when we talk to people. Myra, who's next?
I don't see any hands up, so I'm going to just go into the questions.
I see Brandon's hands, Pamela. So you may not see all of them. So since you don't see them, I will just take them as I see them at the top, but in this order: Brandon, Pamela, Amanda, and I don't see, you just scratched your head. I don't see your name, but I got you next, okay? All right,
Henley?
So.
You said Henley?
Yes, I'll get, so she's 5th then in line. Let me slide on this page. Okay, so those are the hands I see up for now. So Brandon, did I call you first? Okay, and then, because now people are switching around. So help me, Myra, because you know how it flips around on Zoom. Okay,
So we have Brandon's gonna go first.
then Pamela, then Amanda, then Juan, then Chandria. I got you. Trish, I see you. And I think that's all for now. Then we'll get other folks. Okay, Brandon, you're up.
All right. Hi, everybody. This is Brandon Young Fountain. And so we've lived in this neighborhood probably going on kind of 15 years now. We used to be at 40th and Drexel. Now we're kind of 40th and Ellis. And so we've got 2 young kids, and the cars that come down in front of our house are going full speed. And so I support having the speed panel, I think what you call it, speed platform in front of the park. The question I have is that, have the complaints around speed been limited to kind of this block? I mean, obviously I've seen people speeding all the way down to 47th and then some. And so I'm curious on whether or not this proposal stops at just the park,
Right.
or we're gonna have it periodically down, kind of down Ellis.
Yeah. So just to level set, it's a speed table. I forget the name of it too. But the speed table is what we displayed in front of the park. No, the speeding goes all the way through. So like I said, Ellis goes from 39th all the way to 51st Street. And lots of people use it to get to 51st, literally. Lots of people use it past 43rd Street. What we think is turning it one way right there will push everybody else to Cottage who is using it as a thoroughfare. So it'll cut down on traffic. Ellis is not meant, it's called a residential street. It's only meant for people who live there to go down. It's not meant to pass through. That's not what it's meant for. And so we believe that turning it one way only at 39th will push people to Cottage, and they will continue down Cottage. Some people I've heard, there's lights on Cottage. That's why people like to use Ellis, because you can just fly right through. There are a number of stop signs, which people roll and by, but yeah, so just to kind of level set, we're hoping that only residents then will continue to go down Ellis, just to kind of answer your question.
Our next one is Pam.
Okay.
Pam, can you unmute yourself?
Yes, I did unmute. Thank you. My name is Pamela Schneider. Hi, everyone. And I've lived in the 4100 block of Ellis for 26 years. I agree with Francine that I don't think the residents in the 4100 block of Ellis, and that would also include Berkeley, because there are people on 41st Place that have to go over to Cottage Grove. Part of this conversation implies that you can go south on Drexel, but you cannot. So if an adjustment had to be made, why couldn't it be made to open up Drexel so that it could go south again? Because what's going to happen is an inordinate amount of traffic is going to be pushed over to Cottage Grove, only to have to come back.
Okay.
As far as the speed bump, has anyone thought about putting the circular flower beds that you see in a lot of neighborhoods on the which slows down traffic considerably, and it's not something that's ugly?
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen that in Jackson Park. They did that. I haven't seen it in other communities, but they went really strong with that. But I
Not
hear
to cut you off, but I don't see, just because they've done it in other neighborhoods, there's no reason for us not to do it here. A lot of work was done by residents when I first moved here, that was started from many residents before I moved here. And speed bumps is one of the things that I think just distracts from a neighborhood. But I have one other point to make about the changing of 39th Street. How does that affect emergency vehicles that have to come down?
Right. I'll answer that and then we will move on. So it won't affect, emergency vehicles can go any way they want to go down the street. If they need to get somewhere quickly, they can go, backwards, forward, down a one-way, what have you. So it won't affect their timing at all. Myra, who's next?
Andrea?
Yeah, I know. Hopefully you got Juan in there too, because I know he was next too.
Yeah,
but
Juan is right after Andrea.
Okay, I'll go to Andrea if I can find her. Is your hand still up?
Andrea, if you're here, if you can unmute yourself and ask your question.
Yeah, I don't see her hand still up, so it's hard to see her.
So
We'll come
let's
back.
go to Juan and come back to her.
Yeah, I'll come back to Andrea.
Juan?
Hey everyone. So I just raised my hand to react to a couple of the earlier comments. We live on the 3900 block. We were not someone that suggested this, but when this proposal was mentioned and we saw it come through, we were definitely supportive of it. We have small kids. We've only been here, just to say right, I'm saying how long they've been here. We've been here for about 7 years. And so I can attest to what everybody's saying about it being inconvenient. It would be extremely inconvenient for us. However, because more than anybody, we have to go all the way around just to get to where we would have gotten to essentially by turning off of 39th Street. But someone mentioned there not being many cars coming through here. All times of day and night, we hear cars, see cars flying through here, multiple times flying through the stop sign at 40th, dangerously so. I mean, kids or whomever. So I just wanted to reiterate that it is an absolute issue. Whether we do a speed bump or something else that can slow that traffic down, or multiple speed bumps, I don't know what that is. I would be supportive of that, but as someone who would be significantly inconvenienced by this, I just want to reiterate that it is a safety issue. There are multiple threads I've seen going on just recently over the past week of people kind of talking about us needing to do something about this because of the safety hazards that exists in this area. So I just wanted to reiterate that as somebody who lives right here and sees, hears, and feels this all times of the day and night.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Juan. Myra, have you added other people's hands?
Yes, I'm adding people in order. Our next speaker was going to be Chandra.
Okay.
Followed by Trish.
Okay. Let me find Chandra. There you go.
Chandra, can you unmute yourself?
Yes, okay, let's see.
Yep, you're on
Yes,
mute.
I'm on, can you hear me? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, hi, I'm Dr. Chandria Boyd. Can you hear me okay?
I can.
Yes.
Are you able to hear me?
Yes,
okay.
we can.
So it's Dr. Chandria Boyd. I live on 40th and Lake Park, and I am not in agreement with the reversal of the traffic. This would be, Alderman, I know you said a little inconvenience, but to someone who lives exactly in the little pocket that I live in, this is a significant inconvenience to myself. I use this street multiple times a day, and what we got the reversal of the traffic. You reversed the traffic near the park over here near Oakenwald and made them one way heading, west and then east.
Yep.
And as someone who sits in a pocket that is, my alley is cut off by that large apartment complex, that multi-level complex building. I don't get to go, to the street behind me in order to head south. So I have to go 2 blocks down or head north just to head south. So that reversal.
Dr. Boyd, I'm sorry, share your street. You don't have to share your address, but share your street.
Okay, 40th and Lake Park.
Okay, thank you.
So as you know, on the end, I'm right by that wall. So at that wall, you have the large apartment complex. And so that complex cuts off my alley. So when you guys change the directions of the street, now, depending on what I want to do, I have to go 2 blocks down out of the way. And
Right.
then also with my daughter going to school in Hyde Park, it's an inconvenience because I have to go 2 blocks north just to head south through the neighborhood. And so now if you talk about reversing the direction of, the street, now you're talking about taking me over to Cottage Grove and coming down extra blocks, not just one, unless I want to filter back over in another couple of blocks through an alley. I'm talking about to stay on regular streets. Now I have to go so far south to come back north, or just get off, I work south. So otherwise I'd have to get off in Hyde Park and come 7, 8, 9 blocks north. So you're talking about, adding in multiple minutes a day for everything that I need to do as a commute. I am highly in favor of, a speed table or, as the young lady said, with the flower bed, because I do think that something needs to be done about the speed. I mean, even on my street, they run the stop sign. I even coming home, sometimes I can't, come onto my own block for a minute or two just because people are running that stop sign near that apartment building. But reversing that traffic is not, it's not going to be a good thing for myself or my family.
I hear what you're saying. And like I said, that's the inconvenience is the biggest thing. So I hear what you're saying. Thank you, Dr. Boyd.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Thank you, Dr. Boyd. I have a question from Karen Riley. Are you able to unmute yourself, Karen?
Actually, Myra, hold on a second. Alma, you skipped Ms. Pittman.
Oh, so Myra has the area, and unless they're a participant, they can't they can't unmute themselves. So some are attendees. Like I said, we had about 200. So the way we did it was, as I explained earlier, and I did not try and get people for or against it. As you can see, I just did it kind of by proximity to block. But let's go with the folks who have their hands up, who are in the participant, and then we can try and get to their questions, Myra, as well. Hopefully they will be answered by folks who are live here.
Okay, so our next person is going to be Trish. Is Trish hand still up?
I think we skipped Amanda. Let me.
That's what
Yeah,
I'm
let me
saying.
get to Amanda, and then we'll get to Trish.
And then Azuri after Trish.
Great, thank you, everyone, and thank you for listening to everything we have to say. So I'm Amanda. I'm here with my husband DeCarlo. We're at 41st and Lake Park Avenue. We've lived here for the last, I think 6-7 years now. Totally in agreement with Ellis in a sense of the speeding, because it occurs horribly on Lake Park, especially by Williams Davis Park. They fly through the stop sign if they even stop at all. So I definitely get that concern. We have a small son as well. I see tons of kids crossing the street. I mean, cars flying, speeding. But I'm in disagreement with the change with the reversal of Ellis. I don't know that it really would accomplish that much, especially with speed. If speed is an issue, I think it helps out that small little piece, but I don't know that it would help out anything else on Ellis. So for me, I think that something else probably would make more sense. And I think would not disrupt. I think for the little bit that you're helping, and it's a lot of it's a lot of inconvenience for everything around. And I don't know that it's going to help relieve the speed problems in front of, for Ellis. It's definitely not Lake Park. Not sure.
Yeah, Sophia, I think, I've been in the area for about 15 years. My wife and we've been on Lake Park for roughly 6 or 7 years. Sure. I think I totally get it. I'm all about the kids. I think having something down on Ellis, because we actually we go from one park to the next park. However, Ellis is a park we do frequent as well, and a few other neighbors on the block as well. Sure. But I think, we're overlooking, honestly, the biggest problem is Lake Park. Not taking anything away from Ellis, but if there's, if you're going to do something for Ellis, you got to do something for Lake Park as well, because I think that is the biggest part of it. And that's going to increase traffic coming back now from from south to north. So, even if you push them back to Cottage Grove, that somehow, some way, that's going to increase the traffic on Lake Park, which I think something needs to be done both places. You know, I get it. I understand there's a few people that live on that block who actually thought of doing something to help mitigate the amount of traffic, but Lake Park is just as bad, and I think it's actually worse because every single night there's cars, there's motorcycles, there's everything going down Lake Park, and I think it's just going to increase the traffic coming back our way now. We're already dealing with a totally different issue with the bridge, which we love. I thank you for that. I think that was huge for us, for the people that live in the area. But I also think that the amount of traffic now, it's increasing in our neighborhood. It's constantly increasing and reversing it. I come from north to south. Now I have to go back to Cottage Grove just to get home. So even though, and I'm gonna wrap this up, even though there's, you know, something that you're doing to help with the kids and the speeding, you're also inconveniencing, you know, quite a few people that live in the neighborhood, that this is kind of like a shortcut for us once we come off Lakeshore Drive.
Sure. I thank you again for that comment. We honestly are looking at Lake Park as well. There are 3 streets. We're considering this kind of as a mitigating tool. Lake Park is one of them. They do the same thing going the other way. And 49th Street is a street that you can go literally almost all the way from the Dan Ryan all the way to Lake Park. So we're looking at, again, reversing that. Inconvenience is important. Safety is going to be our main consideration. Obviously, convenience is important. One of the ways we got this is going on the north side. If you can look at how traffic patterns are and how they make neighborhoods safer, a lot of them do that by making one-ways and making it harder for people who don't live in the area to just speed through the area. People who live in the area are more conscious of their own kids who are in the area and so forth. But I certainly hear the inconvenience piece, and it hasn't gone unnoticed. Who do we have next, Myra?
Trish, followed by Azuri, and then Jessica.
Okay, Trish.
And don't forget Musette was on your list as well.
Oh, okay.
Hi.
Can you put Musette on your list too, Myra, please?
Yes, she's on here.
Trish, thank you for joining us.
Hi, thank you. So I'm on the, my husband and I are on the 4,000 block of Ellis, next to Brandon and down the street from Juan. And, you know, when this proposal was first made, the first thing I thought of was, oh, that's really going to be inconvenient because we're not going to be able to come off Oakwood onto Ellis to get to our unit. But the inconvenience is minor in comparison to the safety issue. I second what Brandon and Juan said about cars speeding through here all hours of the day and night. And it's clear that they're not residents, otherwise they wouldn't be driving like bats out of hell to get all the way through. So I think the point is that people coming off of Lakeshore Drive down Oakwood and using Ellis as a thoroughfare, it would in fact deter that. They're not going to come off of Lakeshore Drive and take Oakwood to Cottage Grove and then circle back and come down to Ellis to speed through. They're just not going to do that. It's too much of an inconvenience for them. Once they're on Cottage Grove, they're going to stay on Cottage Grove. So we are in agreement with the reversal. We're in a 4-unit condo building, and there are children in the building. And you know, I don't think there's any issue with respect to, Sophia, as you pointed out, with emergency vehicles. They can drive any way they want to. They already do drive the wrong way on Ellis, you know, whenever they need to. So we're in favor of it. I do understand it's an inconvenience, but I just think safety trumps inconvenience every day.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Davis. Appreciate your feedback. Myra, who do we have next?
Thank you. Let's take Musette because she's been waiting.
Yes, where's Miss Henley? I saw you. If you have your hands up, then I see you more quickly. Prentice, if you see Miss Henley, can you? Oh,
I got it.
Okay, appreciate it.
So Ms. Henley, I just asked you to unmute yourself. There you go.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Okay, a couple of things. I think that the speed table is a wonderful idea. Sunday, when I was riding, I was out in the community. I went down a street, what, in the 50s near Ellis. It was either on Ellis or it was one street over where they had speed bumps on that street, which were not high speed bumps that you don't tear your car up, but at least it would slow the people down. And I like Pam. I've been on this block almost 30 years now. And I do see the people speeding, but I do not agree with turning the street around. And the other thing, I just want to get some clarity. I got a flyer in my door that said this was a done deal. Is this a done deal, or are we still open for, and well, you all know I'm just a little old lady, so I just say what I have to say. But they said that this was already, that it was done, a done deal and had been approved by the city council. Is that true, or is that just some rhetoric, and it is still open for input from the community concerning the speed bumps or the speed table? I think that's wonderful. And then if they put another speed table down there by King High School, that would still slow those down that are trying to get to 47th Street.
Sure. I'm happy to answer that, Ms. Henley. You know, you're more than just a little old lady. You also help us out with the post office and a number of other things in the community. So appreciate your feedback. I will answer that question. It's not a done deal. We passed an ordinance. So by law, I can do that. But, you know, I've never done much without the input from the community, even though it takes time. We pass an ordinance because, as folks know, on Oakenwall, it can take forever to put us in a position. And we socialized this initially with just the 3900 block. And when it was brought to our attention that other folks wanted to weigh in, we stopped. So yes and no. I could move forward, put a sign up, and it'd be legal. But no, we're not going to move forward without input. COVID stopped us. A lot of things, you know, it's been tough. I just forgot we had an election yesterday, so I know a lot of folks are a lot going on. But it's not. If this were a done deal, I wouldn't be having this community meeting. You know, it takes time. But you know, anything good that comes out of the community, I really feel there's generally a lot of tension before you make a decision, but it always makes your decision better. And I like hearing input and getting input. And so I did halt when I made the mistake of just socializing it kind of with that first block and really not the rest of the block. So that's what we're doing here. And so appreciate your feedback, Ms. Emily.
Thank you.
Myra, who's next?
Thank you. Trish is next. If Trish Davis, unmute yourself.
Okay.
I want to let you know that Tracy Bay has had her hand up as well.
Okay.
Yes, I just added Tracy's name. So I don't know how you guys are saying the names. I'm adding them as they come
Their
through.
hands aren't up. If you don't use the raise hand function, the raise hand function pops. There's so many people on, it's hard to see everybody. But the raise hand function will pop you up to kind of the forefront of our site. So Tracy just wasn't using that, but I think she got you anyway. So we'll get her in there. But Trish, you're on.
I actually,
all right, Trish, before you start, I just want to do a quick call out. So I have Trish, followed by her would be Azuri, Jessica, Latia, Yasmin, and Tracy.
Okay, Azuri's next in, because you already did go, Ms. Davis.
I already did go. I did go. But I do have one quick question. Would it just be signage preventing people from turning left off of Oakwood if the reversal went through? Or would there be some sort of a barrier?
Yeah, so if you look on Oakenwall, there's a barrier there now. But what we would long-term, because part of the proposal is, we can easily turn a one-way back. Like if for some reason it just wasn't right, we could just, reverse it. But long-term, you could put a bump out there to let people know, that you can't turn. immediately they would put a red barrier there so that people would know, that you can't turn. If you go over to Oakenwall, where we did turn that street, you can see kind of what it looks like. But yeah, it would be up there, and there'd be signage as well to let folks know. Because out of creatures of habit, we'll not see the sign and keep on. So we have to put up barriers so that it will mitigate even more accidents. Okay, who is it?
Azuri.
Was Azuri?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead, Azuri.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you so much, Alderwoman, for the time to have this discussion. Hi, everybody. My name is Azuri Collier. I actually live on the 3900 block of Ellis. Happy that we're having this discussion. I am in favor of the reversal, having lived here and really just experiencing the immense speeding coming down. In my mind, I'm thinking about folks getting off Lakeshore Drive and they can't go south on Lake Park, so they go south on Ellis, and it's like that first street. So instead of going down to Cottage, which is a much larger street, they come down Ellis. And I'm sure all of you know, you've seen it, you're in the communities, right? The young people and even some more of our seniors, I think, does not do a good service for the overall block. So I am in favor of the proposal. With the discussion tonight, I think my neighbors have brought up some really, really important and thoughtful questions that make me think more broadly just around the overall impact assessment. And one question I wanted to ask you, Alderwoman, to see if you had additional perspective on. I'm curious as to why it's just, one block. Was it part of the overall assessment where you might have considered, 3 or 4 and then figured out that the most significant benefit comes just from that one block? Could you help us understand a bit about that? Because I think that might really help inform those who might be on the fence thinking about, is it enough to really alleviate the proposed inconvenience for the safety? So if you can help.
So we've ridden that block, gone through it over. I am, the first step to treating is to admit, I use Ellis as a thoroughfare. I mean, I really do. And I've caught myself speeding and tried to slow down, especially when I go past a park. But our thought was just the one block is, again, we didn't want to inconvenience everybody who actually lived, in the 4000 block and the 4100 block. Really, if you live in the 4200 block, you can get, down Drexel and turn on 42nd and get to your place. So really those blocks, we were thinking that if you did live in the 4000 block and the 4100 block, that you could again turn on to 40th off of Cottage and come back, through Drexel and get back on the street, and there wouldn't be a lot of traffic. But the majority of traffic, I have sat there and watched for hours, literally, does not live on either of the 3900, the 4000, or the 4100 block. They go all the way through, they're speeding through to get, from here to there, and they should be on Cottage, at the very least on Drexel, both which are arterial streets or through streets. They're meant to be going from one neighborhood to the next. A residential street is meant for just that, for people who live in the residence and in the area. So we thought only that one block so that it didn't inconvenience people more who lived in the area, and that it would indeed mitigate the folks who were just using it as a thorough to use Cottage, because I've done it myself. If I've passed up Ellis, I will just continue down Cottage. And by the way, Cottage does not have a lot of traffic on it, even during rush hour. It really doesn't, and nor does Drexel. And so that was our thought process around that. But thank you for that question.
That's helpful. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Our next participant is Jessica.
Okay, Jessica.
Hello?
We can hear you.
Hi. Okay. First, I wanted to say good evening, and I'm really grateful to have this space and this community conversation. When the leaders at the federal level don't understand what democracy is, it's nice to feel like we can have some in our neighborhood. So I appreciate this space. I have lived in the community for about, well, on this block for about 5.5 years. And when I first moved in, I live right on the 40th block, right across from Holly Park. And when I first moved in, I asked about the speeding traffic and was told by my neighbors in the Ellis Park Association that they had been for many years raising the issue without any response and being told that mitigation efforts, that they speed bumps were impossible and whatever. And so I appreciate that this is on the table. I did start a petition maybe a week and a half ago, and we had about 250 signatures of people supporting the implementation of speed bumps on Ellis in front of the park, specifically for the reasons that others have mentioned. And my 3 small children, my dog, me, have all had these close encounters where it takes your breath away and you say a prayer for a second of thanks that it just missed you. But I also have had the experience of my car being damaged by cars speeding down the street that crashed into another car. And the people who were speeding through were not residents of our blocks and were using it as a thoroughfare. So it is an issue of safety that to me is the primary concern. And for me, I think that the urgency is to get something in place now. And my concern, I think, speed bump, flower beds, whatever it takes. I don't have a dogma around what the kind of physical structure is, but I believe there needs to be a physical structure. I believe there need to be signs. The thing about the reversal, though, that I agree is also inconvenient, but the thing that makes me open to it is that it's immediate and now. And I don't know how many months it's going to take to get a speed table or a speed bump or whatever put in place. But my kids go to that park every day. And so, especially in COVID, where they have no other outlets for physical activity, that park is an important part of our day-to-day life. So for me, the immediacy matters. And I think when you met with us to share our concerns, the idea that this could be something that we try, like a reversal is not a permanent physical structure. It's a sign that says this way instead of this way. And if we tried it and we set a process by which we could have, at a certain point, we have a check-in and the community can share how things are going, it seems to me to be, something that we can all take stock of and see what does this really affect and support the reduction of traffic flow down our street. And does it support, how inconvenient is it to people? I think people are raising real questions around what's going to happen when we make that reversal. I'm worried about when you're coming up Lake Park and then you go left at 40th to come back around, is that street already being a two-way is hard for cars to get by, especially in the snow. Yeah. So these are all things that I think, and so that takes me, I'm sorry, I'm talking a long time, but to my last point, which is, I do think we need a broader, for this whole segment, study of what is it going to take to address the speeding issues. Because I drop my kids in Hyde Park for school, I come up on 47th up Lake Park all the time. And I could just get off on 39th and come back, but I do take the shortcut, right? And that's a problem, and I am contributing to that traffic going through there. And so I understand that I think we do need to figure out how we're going to be putting things in place that reduce the traffic flow on both ends. Both of those will be inconvenient for me, but I do think that the safety issues have to trump these issues, these concerns.
Yeah, she used the word Trump, but okay. So just a couple things. Thank you for your comments, but one thing we forgot to mention is we are looking at turning 40th one way, because for two reasons. One, everybody knows it shouldn't be a two-way anyway. From Drexel to Lake Park. So that would be part of it, so that flow, it wouldn't be as much traffic going through there as well, going both ways. I forgot to mention that. We showed it in the visual presentation, but I didn't. So, and just in terms of, we've been trying to get pricing from CDOT and asking them about timing. But you talked about the immediacy, and I could say, yeah, that's right. But in all fairness, if the weather stays pretty good, this is something that perhaps we can implement fairly soon, meaning it may take another 3 weeks or so, but the weather would have to cooperate. So just as an FYI, but I want everybody to understand all the considerations. that we're going to. You're right. Since it's past city council, we could, get signs up and barriers probably within the week. It would take a little bit longer to do the speed table, but that is something that we would like to do regardless of the street change as well. But we do feel like the street change would be helpful too. Just wanted to tell you, lay all the considerations on the table. Myra, who do we have next?
We have Latia, followed by Yasmin, Tracy, Alex, and then Lisa Clark.
Okay, and we will try and end this meeting at 7:30 and kind of end with some next thoughts. Prentice, can you help me with the next person? I can't see. You said it was Latia. I think I got you, Latia. Can you?
Do you see her?
Yeah, can you unmute?
Latia says she can't unmute.
Prentice, can you try and unmute her?
No, I got it.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name's Latia Young Fountain. As my husband had mentioned, we're at 40th and Ellis. Completely, I won't belabor this, but in support of the reversal or whatever the case, or speed bumps. We've had hit and runs, everything, we see it. My question is, what you just started to touch on is just really the timeline, because I don't feel as if we're really going to have a true consensus this evening. So what is the next steps from today, and what is the timeline for that?
So good question. All decisions that hit my desk are not easy and generally come with folks on both sides. I will take an assessment and kind of move forward. I will give you a sense of what I'm feeling, even at the end of this meeting, just based on feedback, and then, move forward from there. But yeah, we're not going to be in 100% agreement, and, but I'm trying to at least get communication, and so that everybody kind of understands what goes into this decision making, and then kind of go from there. But I will give you my thoughts on this meeting, and what I've heard and the feedback at the end, so around 7:30, and then take some time to make a final decision. Who's next? Thank you, though, Letitia. I appreciate that. Myra.
Next is Yasmin.
Hi, hello. Hi, good evening, everybody. And thanks for this platform to allow people in the neighborhood to get feedback. I live on the 3900 block of Ellis. I was not part of the initial request for this, but when it came across, I definitely supported it. I've only lived here for a couple of years, but I'm someone who walks around the neighborhood every single day with my dog. We go around the park, I go around Lake Park, Ellis, Drexel. So I spend at least, a good 30, 40 minutes walking around. I've had a couple of close encounters at Oakwoods of people who come down and they don't stop. They just continue full speed around that corner. Not only with myself, I've witnessed kids, I've witnessed people have altercations from car to car with close calls. Also at the corner of 40th and Ellis, the same kind of thing. Some people don't stop all the way. So whenever I'm walking my dog around the corner, I make sure I stop to make sure I take an extra look. Another big issue is the trash. Safety definitely is number one, but there's an immense amount of trash along Ellis. I mean, not just like papers and things here and there. I'm talking about full bags of fast food, whatever the case may be. I know that's not a priority. Safety is one. But that's another large issue. I spend a lot of time in the trash when I'm walking the dog. My other comment was about 40th. So you already addressed that. I thought that it's already a pretty narrow street. So making that go in one direction, I think is a phenomenal idea, especially if you're gonna have a bus and add a bus to the mix.
Yeah.
But I definitely am in support of this. I understand that it may be an inconvenience for others, but I've just seen more than one or a handful of close calls of kids, of dogs, of people getting into it because there's someone that's not taking their time going around that corner. So I'm definitely in support and appreciate the opportunity to provide some feedback.
No, thank you. I appreciate that. There was one comment you made. God, my senioritis is showing up. It wasn't about 40th. Remind me something else you said I wanted to respond to.
Trash.
Oh, the trash. Yes. So thank you. Reginald Garrett is our ward superintendent, and you can email him. Prentice will put his email in the chat. You can also call him, and he, literally email him every day if trash there's every day, because then he will know to go by there every day to get that. So sometimes trash blows, it takes on different, but he's been doing a really good job of trying to, beautification upkeep is really important. If you guys haven't checked out Drexel Boulevard, what we've done over there, we really just pimped folks and got all types of money, tried to get that boulevard, back to the beauty. And if you haven't been there lately, please check that out. But trash is important. So I think it's in the chat. That's our ward superintendent. He responds daily. He's up by like 4 a.m. And he will respond. You could just quick email, hey, there's a lot of trash in this area. Please pick it up. That's
Alderman,
it.
she was referring to trash being thrown from vehicles.
Oh, but it's still on the street.
Right.
So yeah, okay. I hear you though. We'll if police are so overwhelmed, I don't think we're going to put them on the trash detail right now, but we'll get the ward superintendent on that. Okay, Myra, who's next?
Next, we have Tracy, followed by Alex, and then Lisa. And with respect to time, guys, let's try and keep it short so those last 3 speakers can get their questions answered.
Okay.
Tracy.
I see you. There you go.
Good evening. I'm Tracy Bay. I'm on the 4100 block of Ellis. So I want to raise a few points. One, why are we not looking at other avenues as opposed to just turning the street a one-way before we even try speed bumps? So you talk about trying things, and if it doesn't work, then go to the next point. Speed bumps would seem to be the first thing, because I'm not sure if you're thinking about it as a whole within the blocks from say 39th to 43rd to 45th, even with other streets have been made one ways. And if you're going to do that, you have to think about it as a whole for the community, not a block by block situation. So even changing that one way, coming out from Cottage, making 40th the one way to a certain point, it's a lot. And yet Lake Park, like the Pittman said, is a even bigger issue, because the speeding down Lake Park is the worst. The biggest thing is, yes, speeding, but the stop signs, people go through the stop signs at 40th, at 41st, at 42nd, and speed bumps would stop that. I don't believe that people will realize that 39th is a one-way, but still come right back into Ellis to use it as the same thoroughfare that they've been using it. And some people that live on the blocks are speeders too. So we need speed bumps. We need something that's going to alleviate for the people that live on the blocks, whether they're further down, but to stop the speeding. A speed bump is needed more than just the, what is it called? That you're going to put at the park?
Oh, the speed table.
The speed table. We need something, and yes, we need it right away, but the stop signs is what I watch people go through, speeding through, not just speeding, but speed through the stop signs and don't even stop. That's a big issue. So I think that we should look at this as a community and as a whole, block by block, not one block at a time.
Sure, that's what we're doing here. Thank you, Tracy. Myra, who's next?
Alex, please, followed by Lisa.
Okay. Alex. There you go, Alex.
Perfect. So can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Alderman King. So it's actually interesting. You mentioned the Jackson Park Highlands. That's actually where I grew up. And what a lot of people don't know is that even though they have the circles now and they've cul-de-saced it, the initial plan to try to curb traffic, they reversed all the streets and it didn't work because it just moved the traffic around. It didn't actually change how much traffic was coming through the neighborhood. So the kind of the cul-de-sac and everything else was like a secondary reaction to that. Sure. So I think the intent to change the direction of the streets is good, but I think in my own personal experience, just having lived through it in a neighborhood where they had similar issues with people using the neighborhood as thoroughfares, it didn't actually work. And what it ended up doing was just moving the traffic to different blocks. I think the question that I'm kind of wondering is, what's the cause of so much traffic that doesn't live in our little area driving through our area? And I have to wonder, is the issue not really further south and maybe even the exit of 47th and Lakeshore, that people are coming off at 39th because traffic coming off at 47th is really the issue? And I guess my question then is, would we not be able to consider something where maybe we reverse traffic south of 43rd in a way that it discourages people who don't live in this neighborhood from coming through this neighborhood? And then in conjunction with the speed table and some speed bumps and other things, we don't make this drastic plan to affect one block, because if Holly is really the issue, people are still going to come back to Ellis. This doesn't really stop anybody from driving down Ellis. The speed table is great. But living on 40th and Lake Park, and I think I see some of the families over at Holly Park all the time with my two daughters, so unfortunately you guys can hear in the background. Lake Park is a much more significant issue right now than I would say Ellis is, but they're both important. And I think the plan has to be something that addresses the whole little area that we're in here. And I think really one of the things that we have to look at is that I think the traffic is up also in part because people are coming over to the bridge. And unfortunately, living directly across the street, I mean, the police have been called to my block right on 40th and Lake Park. I can't tell you how many times this summer, 2, 3, 4 in the morning, people are outside at the park. I mean, there was a dance party in the street with 150 people and probably 20 police cars one night. And that's a very consistent thing that's taking place all summer long. So I think people are going to find a way into the neighborhood. I do agree that maybe a speed bump right as you turn off of Oakwood would be a huge deterrent, because if the first thing you have to do coming off that block is slow down, even if it's before you get to that little alley behind those houses, then you have the stop sign at 40th, then you have the speed table in the middle of the block. And then when you get to 43rd, you can't go any further south on Ellis. You're really going to limit the amount of people that are trying to use Ellis as a thoroughfare. And then I think going back to my original point, I think we just have to look at what is causing so many people that don't live in this neighborhood to get off at 39th. And if you're saying that you think that people even going as far south as 51st Street, like there's a bigger issue that isn't really even being addressed by any of this.
Yeah, I would agree. Just in my own mind, it's getting off and just being able to go through without stoplights. I think that's part of it. I do think traffic sometimes gets backed up on Lakeshore Drive, so I think that's a bigger issue. I would agree that Lake Park is an issue too. We're looking at ways to mitigate that issue as well. I think it's, there are a lot of folks who use both of those streets who don't live in the community just to get from place to place without getting on the drive, without getting on Cottage. And really it's to save minutes. It's kind of like speeding, from one destination to the next. You think going 90 saves you a lot of time, but really it doesn't, over a long period of time. So I can't speak to everybody, but I've looked at it. I think all of you have looked at it. I think there are a number of different reasons. I do agree that we have to look at this as a community, which is what we're trying to do. It's really not necessarily about the 3900 block of Ellis. It does impact them, it inconveniences them, but it's the traffic that they pick up speed going down, past the 40th, 41st, and so on and so forth. But I agree, it's bigger than just Ellis. It's Lake Park. Like I said, it's 49th. It's a bunch of streets where you can just get from miles and miles from one destination to the other, and people prefer to go down those streets than they do the arterial streets. I have no idea why people choose that over Cottage. I can't speak to that. I'm trying to figure out why even I do it. I think part of it, when you're on a street, just kind of cruising by, it's a little different. You think the stop signs aren't stop lights and it's quicker maybe. But yeah, I know Lake Park is an issue. It's a little more difficult where we've been looking at Lake Park at 47th, where a lot of traffic comes through. So we're gonna follow up with that, but we thought this would be the first, and then we try Lake Park, try 49th, and then hope to get at some of the safety issues are our main concern. The safety issues first, and then the issues of convenience next, and to make sure, again, that people use residential streets for residents and not to go from one community or one neighborhood to the next. Who's next, Mara?
Lisa Clark is our next speaker.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes.
Great seeing all of the wonderful neighbors. Hi, Amanda. Lisa Clark. I live in between 39th and 40th, directly across from Holly Park. I was taking my daughter there when it wasn't so desirable. So when the renovation came about, it was great, perfect. Also, what that means is that we have more families that visit the park and things like that. I understand and I agree with, of course, there's speeding on Ellis. Everyone have said that. My thing is that I'm 100% against the reversal. Really, when we talk about safety, inconvenience and things like that, but we're saying the same thing. There's a concern with safety. But when you really look at it with the reversal, you're only touching a small amount of residents that lives at 39th Street. So for me, knowing where I live, if the reversal happens, I would then drive up to Cottage, which now we know that there's going to be a lot more traffic. I would then head south on Cottage, but then I'm going to get back off at 40th. And I'm sure I'm not going to be the only one that would do that to get to Ellis, to get to my garage, to get home. So when I hear things that, when drivers get on Cottage Grove, they're not going to come back on Ellis, chances are they will. So even if I lived at 42nd in Ellis, I'm not going to drive all the way down Cottage, come back around to get to my home. And also with the reversal, it's almost like we're focusing on those residents there. So let's say if I'm parked on 40th Street in between Lake Park and Ellis, and if I'm heading west, I need to head west to Drexel to get on Lakeshore Drive to go, get on Oakwood. I can then turn right on Ellis at this point, and then I can speed up Ellis right at 39th, right at 40th to get on that circle right there to get on Lakeshore Drive. So even with the reversal, you have now some increased traffic that can actually use Ellis going north. So there's nothing that will stop, people from, getting on Ellis right there. So that's another thing to consider. So I'm all for speed tables, things of that nature, but I'm 100% against the reversal. And I think what I'm hearing is that sounds like quite a bit of what people are saying, because there's nothing that will stop people from getting back on Ellis at 40th. There's nothing, unless you just block it and just say, you cannot get on Ellis at 40th, so by doing a reversal, it's just not going to stop people from getting back on Ellis, no matter what. And I'm curious to see, what does it cost to do the reversal? And it probably, like you mentioned, not that much, because it's a matter of putting up signs, things of that nature. But it's not going to solve anything. And what I'm hearing, I'm sure what you're hearing, what Prentice is hearing, it's really not going to solve the speeding by doing the reversal. And I know when you and I spoke, you mentioned we'll put it up, see how it goes. It's just a matter of putting up signs, putting up barricades and things of that nature. But there's just no guarantee that, drivers are not going to get back on Ellis at 40th. Even with that reversal now, people that need to get to Lakeshore Drive, they can go up, they can head north on Ellis. So there could be speeding at that point too. So if you're parked in between Lake Park and Ellis on 40th Street, right there, and let's say if you're parked on the street in front of your residence, you're parked facing west. So instead of going west all the way to Drexel, then make a right on Drexel to go around Oakwood, you can then bypass that extra step and just make a right on Ellis and get on at that point. So you still will have people getting on Ellis heading north.
Great. Thank you. Thanks for showing up the other night as well. I appreciate it. Who do we have next, Myra? Is that it? Anybody else, Myra? Myra, I don't know.
No, that will close it out with respect to time.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. I appreciate everybody's feedback. It's been robust. It's been a lot. Again, I think safety is the #1 concern that we should be concerned about. I haven't read a lot of the messages in the chat. So hopefully, I think Prentice, you got those if they're different from the ones that we heard of. But I think we got the gist of what people say, that it would be a huge inconvenience. I think that it would, people may still come down Ellis, so we wouldn't solve issues. But then there are a lot of people who were saying, it's a huge safety issue. We see it, folks coming down 39th all the time, especially not stopping at 40th, near misses at the park. So, I believe that it is, a huge safety issue. I believe it's an inconvenience issue as well. And I hear that, but I believe the safety issues definitely, trying to use another word, trump the other issues. And so, we will take into consideration, I want to read what was said in the chat, as well as emails that were sent, but I believe most of the questions were answered into consideration, and then make a decision fairly soon. So probably within the next couple weeks, and let everybody know what that is that we decide. It obviously won't be easy, but I appreciate this feedback. I again hope that everybody signs up to be a part of the advisory council so that you guys can have discussions about this or other things. We definitely want to have a safety meeting coming up really quickly. There's been some safety concerns that I know folks want to talk about as a community, as well as other issues, infrastructure issues, needs that you guys have, arts, parks issues, needs that you have, development that's being planned in the community that you need to weigh in on. So I appreciate this forum. I appreciate everybody's discussion. I hope it wasn't, the most ideal, but again, I did not want to have kind of 100 people, me just reading what you said in the chat. And I think it was good to hear from a lot of you live, and folks who live in close proximity. That's who we tried to get in this area. And I hope you feel that it was done, transparently, that we didn't try and get folks, who were in support of our proposal, and that you got to hear your neighbors. So thank you. Thank you all for joining us this evening. I appreciate it. If there are things that you didn't say, please feel free to email us, and we will take those into consideration. But again, thank you so much for joining. Prentice, did I miss anything?
We have one final question from Justina.
Okay.
Justina, you want to go ahead and speak? Sorry about overseeing you.
Okay, I'm sorry. Justina, can you unmute?
I'm unmuting now.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
You can close it out.
Hi, good evening. I'm sorry. We live actually on the 3900 block of Ellis, and we don't support the reversal. We would be in favor of the speed bumps. We've tried to, we support that, because the reason that people are getting off of the drive, it's faster for them. So naturally, if you slow them down, but you have to slow them down before they get to the 40th block.
I understand.
You know, and perhaps even the cul-de-sac down at the end of Ellis. If you're going to cut off 39th and I'm right at Oakwood and Oakwood and Ellis, I'm right here, and then 40th. So if you put maybe, I mean, if you're going to turn us north, if you're going to do a reversal, then completely close it off and just make it no outlet. Then the people would have to come completely around and go up 40th or, you know, go down Ellis at that point.
So Ms. Brown, where are you talking about closing off again? I'm sorry, I didn't.
At 40th and Ellis. When you come off of Lakeshore Drive and you make a left, you make a left on it is Pershing, but it turns into Oakwood.
Right, and then yes.
And then you make that left.
Yes.
You make that left. Okay, and we've seen the speeding, the trash. We have to put up with the park all year, you know, the
So
no
you're
parking.
saying close off Ellis at 40th?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
I mean, it's just an idea. I mean, it's
Yeah,
already done.
I think all
You know
the
what I'm saying?
inconvenience folks would be even feel more inconvenienced, but I just wanted to
No,
understand.
because, well, I mean, no, that would make us a two-way because you're going to take the bus off. So they don't have to deal with the bus anymore. But this would then be a two-way where the people could come in and turn around and go back out to Oakwood, which would give them a choice to go to Cottage or go back to Lakeshore Drive.
Okay. I don't think I'm fully understanding you, but
I mean, for the one block, and then whatever you do from 40th all the way to 47th, that's just a different story.
okay. All right, we're going to end there this evening. Thank you, everybody. Prentice,
Thank you.
Myra, thank you for keeping us in line. Hopefully, everybody felt that they were heard, and I appreciate your feedback.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. I appreciate you as well. All right, thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Have a good night, and I apologize if your question was not answered.
Okay, that's okay.
Thank you, Myra. You did a good job. Prentice, where are you? Are you still there?
Yes, I'm still here.
Cool. Did I miss anything?
No, you got to all the questions, the spirit of the questions anyway.
Got it. Waiting for everybody to jump off.
No, I understand.
I think some people are just watching TV and still still in the chat. Thanks, Myra, for quarterbacking that. I think that was helpful. It's hard to see everybody and to read what's going on.
I couldn't see the hands going up. That was interesting. I didn't see any hands.
Yeah.
Because you're not a host, I don't know if that's the function because I was able to see it, but
Yeah, I could see the hands too. Yeah, I wonder. I'm
you're the
sorry
host.
about that.
Yeah,
Next time we'll have to make you a co-host.
Yes.
That's what it was. That's
Yes.
why I couldn't see him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry about
I think
that.
I may have just been a panelist, but we worked it out.
Yeah, no, we did. Are people joining us?
I think somebody.
Prentice, you know you can end the call for all, FYI.
No, I know.
We were just hanging around talking. I gotta see, did anything else move in the presidential race?
Right, because I've been disconnected with work, so I have no idea.
Michigan
is solid. Wisconsin is solid. We'll know about Arizona by midnight tonight.
Wisconsin is solid?
It's us. They called it for Biden earlier today.
Okay, so what is
I thought Arizona was called.
They're getting closer to calling that tonight. That was my understanding.
Closer which way?
In our favor.
Biden.
Oh, I'm voting for Trump. Who are y'all voting for?
All right, now don't lose relations now, Alderman King. I didn't speak last night dealing with this.
I'm joking.
In the call in a moment, just remember to have it downloaded to the cloud and not to your personal computer.
I thought it'll go on you, won't it?
Excuse me?
Whoever created it.
You are the host, so it's gonna go to you.
Okay, I'll just leave my computer up till it's
No, just leave it up, but make sure just choose the option. It's gonna ask you. The cloud. Do not save it to your computer. So it's gonna go to the cloud and download to the Wardle for email.
Yeah.
That way he can access it.
Exactly.
Okay. Lot of different views tonight. So
a lot of chats were in favor of it, FYI though. I was reading the chat.
I saw that. I mean, it's funny because you get people.
It wasn't as vocal as
right,
the ones
who are trying to engineer it. And like I said, it's not an easy decision, but convenience can't be the main reasoning here. But it was good. I hope people felt it was fair, because I was like, well, we can't put all 200 people, and so we chose a way to cut it off, and I think we got both sides. So I think it came across as fair, hopefully. But cool.
I think people appreciate the platform.
Yeah.
Really, when you stated that, hey, actually, I could go put a sign up tomorrow if that's what I wanted to do, but I wanted to engage you guys. I think people appreciated that, and that's what people want.
Yeah.
Not that what they want is going to necessarily change it the way they want, but that feedback, and then explain it. Well, here's why I made this decision.
Yeah.
From what I read in the chat, a lot of people did appreciate that.
Oh, good. I'm glad you're able to read that. And I don't know, I've never gone back to read a chat, so that's.
Yeah, it was a lot. I mean, there were people that were in favor of it, or they like to do it in combination with the speed tables.
Mm-hmm.
And other traffic calming. A lot of people like the idea of having that roundabout or the actual flowers in the middle of the intersection.
Yeah.
As a possible, the flowers as being a possible option. So there was a good amount of dialogue. But like you said, I think people felt good that at least they were heard, even if they don't agree with the decision. As mentioned by Jessica, apparently this has been an issue for 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
And they never had a community meeting about it.
Yeah, there's been a lot. It's been a lot of discussion, which is why, we're trying to, on a number of issues that haven't been moved on, that's what we're trying to do. Like I said, they're never easy ones that come to us, but we got to try and move on it just to make a difference, to try and get more. For me, it's the safety. I've seen the kids, almost have, and it's just, that's why literally when I put the gate up, my mother instincts, I was like, oh my God, how can it be right here without a gate? But I still think we can make it more safe. And when people talk about the inconvenience, I was like, you do realize you'll be in your car.
You said that. You said that.
The other block and a half.
Alderman, there's still one attendee on this.
I know, it's fine. I mean, what I'm saying is not something that I haven't already said. Okay. I'm not sure who that is.
I think the other thing too, just like I think about when I have tough conversations for work with LSCs, I always share, like, you may not be happy with the outcome. My goal is to engage you, to inform you, to consider your feedback so that it can possibly dictate next steps. But I mean, and I do surveys after that, and I think that's something we should probably incorporate on as well. But people really appreciate it. I mean, it's amazing. I mean, I get beat up in meetings. Oh my God, I have one tomorrow. I just say a prayer beforehand. But at the end of it, even with the beating that I get, the real beat down, and so many people just appreciate being part of the conversation. They feel validated. They feel important, like they matter. Yeah. And so that's a huge success in this time, and just on a platform like this, because you can't please everybody.
No.
So people appreciate being part of the conversation. They appreciate transparency, and they appreciate being able to say how they feel.
Yeah, to me, that's important. Like I said, it's not like I have a dog in the fight, right? It's not like I get any satisfaction out of making people, it more inconvenient, but I do, the safety thing is really important. And I also think people, it's, you're creatures of habit. It's kind of what you are comfortable with. But I must admit, I'm equally dumbfounded by people voting a certain way. I'm like, really? I know there are other people who think differently than me, but you know, when people say it'll be an inconvenience, I'm just like, really?
Right, that's your biggest concern is being inconvenienced in a car?
Right. So, but anyway, but thank you guys. I appreciate it. And we'll see. Got to make some decisions here. But I'm glad so many people came out, and I hope more people come out. This will be something else you'll be dealing with at these meetings. So, but you know, it's good to have people come out. It was good to see everybody. And
we had over 100 people.
Yeah.
And more complaining about wanting to join. That's a good problem to have.
Yeah, no, it just shows people are concerned about their community. So I like it. You know, a lot of people avoid it. Like I said, I'd rather do it than not, because we could have done this a long, long time ago. But all right, well, thank you. I'm gonna go.
Check. Good night, guys.
On
try to
office. Thanks, Mara. Appreciate you. All right, Prentice, take care.